Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead Season 6. And what this video is going to be doing is analyzing whether I think Morgan can rehabilitate the Alpha Wolf. We've seen, over the course of Morgan's storyline, that he really has gone through a change of his own. From Season 3 and from the flashback episode, we saw that he was just clearing. He was killing walkers, he was killing people, and he thought his purpose was to clear, to destroy life. Now we see him changed. Now he is preserving life. Now he believes that all life is precious after having his encounter with Eastman and, adopting this idea that all life is precious with Aikido. And I guess I have to wonder, can Morgan rehabilitate the wolf? Can he make him a better person? And I'm going to give my thoughts on that to see if he can. If you are not caught up with The Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled, then don't watch the video because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. Well, first off, one of the things that I'd like to note is Aikido is definitely something that, many people may want to live up to, and it is a very noble and honorable way to live in the zombie apocalypse, in a sense. I think that is a big goal that one day they would like to achieve. This idea that people can work together. This idea that we can trust people again. That we don't have to kill. And I think that it is very, very good to want to achieve this. To want to live this kind of life. But, on the other hand, you do see the negative consequences that living this type of a life can have. And one of those being, Morgan let those, two wolves go back in, Conquer. He met up with the guy. The Alpha Wolf basically said, that he was going to kill him and take him and, keep him because that's what he did. And Morgan, obviously was not up for that and, defeated him and another wolf in a battle, but didn't kill them. He put them in a car and, kept on going. And then, of course, these wolves find the photos of Alexandria, and they end up going to Alexandria, and they attack the community, killing about a dozen members of Alexandria. And, maybe that was a little bit of Morgan's fault. Maybe it wasn't. I don't really know if you can really fault someone for that. But when you think about this next factor, that when they attack, those 5 wolves, he let them go. And they end up finding Rick at the RV and attack him and almost kill him. So you see this idea of, deciding that all life is precious and not killing people can sometimes have negative consequences for other individuals. You let this person go and then they come across somebody and kill them, and you really have to wonder, is it really worth doing something like that? And, that's definitely a big question. But right now, Morgan has the Alpha Wolf in custody, if you will. He has him locked in that house that Morgan was originally staying in. He told, the Alpha Wolf his story about how everything went with him, and he hopes to, at some point rehabilitate him. Well, there's a lot of things that I find are different in regards to Morgan and the Alpha Wolf, as well as their circumstances that really almost make it impossible to do this. And one of those is the fact that they're not alone. And I think that that's going to play a big factor because I really don't think that Morgan can keep this a secret. I don't think that he can keep the fact that he has the wolf locked up a secret. And, the fact is you have Rick, you have Carol, you have, many other individuals in this community that you live in that absolutely do not agree with this principle. You saw this, Morgan wants to preserve life, and then you have Carol, who doesn't matter whether the person's tied up, doesn't matter if they're in custody. If it was her choice, I guarantee you, she'd, kick that door down and put a bullet right in the guy's head. No doubt in my mind. And I really have to wonder if people are going to find out, and who, and what's going to happen. And I think that really is a little bit of a conflict at this point for Morgan because unlike, the Alpha Wolf, Morgan and Eastman were alone. They were in a cabin in the middle of the forest, couple of walkers, coming by, and a goat named Tabitha, who really is not going to be judgmental. Goats are not really, going to say, hey, get rid of this guy because he's evil. That's not going to happen. So you really just have Eastman and Morgan. And Eastman was really the one in control. He had Morgan in the cell. Um, and, Morgan really didn't really have morals at this point. And you have Eastman who already practices Aikido. And the thing is that being alone and hearing this one idea all the time can really, persuade somebody. A lot of us, the way that we believe in things, whether it's religion, whether it's morals, whether it's ethics, whether it's how to live our lives, things like that, those choices that we make, sometimes that's in the environment that we live in. If our parents taught us certain things, our friends at school may have taught us certain things, teachers, people like your neighbors, maybe unfortunate individuals like a criminal, a street gang. On the other hand, maybe a police officer, a fireman, some court person. Different individuals are constantly, influencing us, whether it's in a positive way or a negative way. And we as people really need to make the decision as to what path we go down. But sometimes if you're only really getting one idea all at once and that's all you're getting, sometimes that's going to really, be more susceptible to you. If you were isolated and all you knew is what somebody told you day after day after day, more likely you're just going to believe that. You're not going to believe anything else is possible or anything else is out there because you're only getting that one idea. And the thing is, with Morgan, constantly being told over and over again about Aikido, getting this, treatment from Eastman and not having anybody else to influence him, I think was part of the factor that helped. Now later I'll discuss why I think Morgan in general is just more susceptible to this in the first place, but you can't deny that being alone and having that time alone with Eastman was a big, big factor. If Morgan would have ran into a group of people in the state that he was, and maybe one or two of them are like, no, let's leave him alive. Let's not do anything to him. And somebody else goes, no, we're going to kill this guy. Well, that's not really going to be a good benefit, for him. It's really going to be a disadvantage. So the fact that Morgan and Eastman were alone really helped, Eastman convince Morgan to follow along with this, and nobody else interfered. And what would have happened if somebody would have interfered, I'm going to assume that Eastman would have stayed true to Morgan. Like say some other group members come and stay and then they find out about this. I think Eastman would have given them the same options. You're either going to stay and agree to this and, be a part of this group, or you can leave and I'll just stay with Morgan. And I think that Morgan, that may be something that he might have to do in this upcoming episode, and maybe even the mid-season finale, because I highly doubt that Rick or Carol, or anybody for that matter, is going to be okay with letting this guy live after he's killed so many of their people. And I think they might say, look, Morgan, tough, you're either going to, let us in there or not. And I think that with Morgan, I think he's going to want to come to the Wolves' defense. I don't think that he's going to let Rick do this. It's kind of like the same concept of, if all life is precious, then Rick's life and the Wolf's life, in his mind, is equal. So I think that Morgan might end up fighting Rick, saying, hey, I will let you, either stay and agree with this, or you can leave, but I will not let you kill this guy. And Morgan may end up having to fight Rick. And I think there's a pretty good chance that Morgan may get exiled as a result of this. If they really can't work together and Morgan is keeping somebody dangerous inside the walls, I would not be surprised if they kicked Morgan out. Basically said, look, it's either the wolf or us. Pick. So I think that that's part of the problem is when you have different ideals fighting each other, you have to make a choice. And I think that Eastman would have wanted to protect Morgan just as much as he would have protected anybody else. But if people were going to take Morgan away from him, I think Eastman would have done the same thing. I think he would have protected Morgan, and I think Morgan will do what it takes to protect the Alpha Wolf. But even if Morgan would somehow convince the group to let the guy stay, or Morgan would leave, I don't think the wolf is really rehabilitative. I don't think that Morgan would be able to convince him, to change. Because the thing of it is, the ability to change is within ourselves. We have to make that decision as to whether we are going to change factors in our lives that would, in a sense, make us better or worse or whatever, whatever the term is. But we have to make the decision as to whether we're going to do something or refrain from doing something that we shouldn't be doing. And with Eastman and Morgan, one of the things that I find with them is there was still emotion in them. And I think that that is what really makes them different from the wolf. With Eastman, he was going through grief. He had lost his wife, he had lost his children, and grief makes us do terrible things. But at the end of the day, when Crichton Wilton died, Eastman felt bad about it. It didn't make him feel any better. It didn't make him lose who he was. And he intended to turn himself in, and that's when the zombie apocalypse started. With Morgan, a lot of his grief is connected with, Jenny and Dwayne dying. I mean, this idea of clearing, I think, is really just he's stuck in the past. We know about this. He's stuck in the past, and maybe there's this way of convincing himself, if I clear, then if I would have cleared in the first place, none of this ever would have happened. If I would have killed those walkers, if I would have killed my walker wife, then Dwayne never would have died. And I think it's really that concept of, if I keep clearing, it's going to make up for this. Or, this idea of split personalities. Maybe he's thinking in one split part of his mind, Dwayne really is alive, and this is why he has to clear. And I think that a lot of it was based off of emotion. That was why Morgan acted out. It was because of emotional grief, not because he's a sociopath or a psychopath or he enjoyed it. And that's the difference, I think, when it comes to Morgan and the Alpha Wolf. I don't think Morgan liked doing what he did, and that does matter. And I think a lot of that was really his anger, his grief over not acting and killing those walkers that he should have in the first place, particularly Walker Jenny, who ended up biting Dwayne. So, Aikido, it's a physical and it's an emotional transition. It's about finding peace within yourself. And I think in order to do that, though, you have to regret what you did in the first place. You have to realize that in this instance, killing is wrong. And I think Morgan realized that. He never wanted to kill in the first place. It's just that he was lost. He was brought back by Eastman, by Aikido. It was something that he was able to adopt, come to peace with some of the things in his mind, and go out there and he found his purpose. Instead of clearing, he is going to preserve life. But the problem is Morgan has been so closed off from everything else that is going on that he doesn't really realize that not everybody is redeemable and not everybody feels regret for what they do. And that's part of the problem with Morgan, again, being alone, being by himself. He hasn't seen, from what I can see, what people have done. I think if he would have been with Rick's group after season 3, I don't think there's any doubt that he would not, well, first he wouldn't have run into Eastman in the first place, but he would have seen that people, have adopted these ways of life that really they don't regret what they do. They just do what they do because they have to survive, and it's what they've accepted. And that's the thing with the Alpha Wolf. He has a code. And he doesn't really regret living by this code. He has made a conscious decision, along with a bunch of other group of individuals, that they're going to go out there and slaughter everything in sight because, they're not supposed to be there. They don't deserve to have what they have, according to a lot of the things that they think. They've really regressed into this primitive state, and it's a conscious decision on their part to do this. But you don't see any regret. It's just this, hey, we're going to do this, and that's that. And that's the thing about people like, the wolves, the cannibals. These groups of individuals made this decision to do this. They didn't feel regret. And you heard it straight from Gareth's mouth. If Rick and the group would have let him go, he'd have just done this to somebody else. And you see the same thing with the wolves. You can let them go, but whoever they find next, they're going to kill. They can't be changed. And I just don't think that it's possible. I think at this point, you're fighting against a stacked deck is really what you're doing. You really don't have much of a chance with the wolf because he just mercilessly killed people and kept them. That's what they were about. And I don't see any regret in what they do. And I think that's the big difference. Aikido is something you have to adopt. It's a decision within yourself to make this conscious decision. I'm not going to kill people. I'm sorry for what I did, and here's how I'm going to make up for it. Eastman and Morgan fit that profile. Rick, I think, is somebody who fits that profile, who could eventually get himself to that stage, because I don't think he enjoys doing what he does. A lot of these people in the group, that's really what it comes down to. They haven't stepped over that line, but the truth of the matter is, once you step over that line and choose not to accept responsibility for what you do and to not regret what you do, that's when you're too far. And that's the thing with the cannibals, that's the thing with the wolves. They're past that line. And I don't think there's a chance of them coming back. This is the way that they live. They don't regret it, and that's just that. And I think that Morgan really is wasting his time. And I think that the truth is I think his eyes might open up by the end of the series, or at least by the end of his storyline. I mean, I hope he sticks around, but the fact that he's been alone for so long and doesn't really see what people are capable of, it's his disadvantage. I think if people like Eastman, if people like Morgan would have been out there and not isolated, they would really see the true nature of people and note that you can't save everybody. Some people have to be put down. That's the sad truth of the zombie apocalypse. But Morgan being where he's at, he doesn't know that. He has no knowledge of that because he's been clearing everything that he saw and he's been alone. So I think that's the disadvantage. No, I don't think that he can rehabilitate the wolf. I think the wolf has made this conscious decision to be who he is, and nothing is going to bring him back. And the only way to prevent him from ever hurting somebody again is for them to kill him. And if Morgan's not going to let that happen, then I think Morgan's going to shortly find out that, that's a bad decision. And he either needs to accept that Aikido is not for everybody and maybe partially abandon that, or I think he's going to die. And I think it's going to be really sad to see it, but those are the only conclusions that I can really see with Morgan's character. But we'll see. There may be some surprises, and I really have enjoyed this story that they have been doing with him. So, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Morgan can rehabilitate the wolf? Do you think maybe I'm too skeptical about this and maybe it's possible? Or am I right? Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. If you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.